Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. We've got play-up props here in another set of games in these NBA playoffs as we roll along with Tuesday night. 3 games on the slate. Got best bets up in a separate video for you guys, so make sure you check that out as well. Subscribe to that page and continue to follow along with us each and every day moving forward throughout this postseason. And head to thelines.com. Use everything we've got up on the site right now, obviously including that prop finder tool that's under the NBA tab there. A nice chart to make sure that you can see all the available odds and juice coming back your way for these NBA bets you want to make this postseason. Nate, let's go ahead and get right into your first one. We're going to pick on Tyrese Halliburton to come back from an underwhelming game one there.
Yeah. We're going to pick on Patrick Beverley not being a complete stopper, basically, if that's what we're indicating, because he kind of like was a no-show in game one, Halliburton, in terms of what he's capable of. So, I mean, I'll take the whole bundle here, 34.5 PRA, which is better odds than just his points or assists. I think there'll be more rebounds available because it's a playoff game, because the Bucks offense just fell apart in the second half after Dame Lillard cooled off a little bit here. I mean, they shot 31% from deep, 42% from the floor. In that second half, Pacers 24 rebounding opportunities, and what Hallie finished with 8 boards. I think we had like a 9-7-8 line. That's what it was. Only took 7 shots. And I'm sure there's going to be some internal discussion that like, we need you to be a little more aggressive here, bud. And he was able to do that. If you think like, is Pat Bev a Halliburton stopper? I mean, no, his last 5 regular season games against teams with Pat Bev on them, 27 points a game, 14 assists a game, 5.2 threes at 50%. So I'm intrigued by like a little taste here on Halliburton to hit the most threes in this game, which is 4-1 at FanDuel, basically saying like he'll hit more threes than Dame. I don't think there's anybody on the Bucks who's going to catch fire to that degree. Maybe Miles Turner could outscore him in that regard on his own team, but just an interesting look here. I mean, or him to just hit 4 threes, which is definitely plus money as well. I think he'll just come out far more aggressive, and that's how he's been able to beat Pat Bev, who, is just a physical dude, but it cannot match like the quickness off the dribble for Hallie to be able to pull. But I mean, the assist is is probably the most reliable thing here. If you just want to bet 11 assists, right? Because he had 20 potential assists in game one, and the Pacers shot 21% from deep. That's not something that's going to continue against the Bucks team that gives up threes pretty consistently, packed in the paint, denied them in the paint. And the Pacers are going to have to make them pay here. And I think these passes that Halliburton have been spraying out are going to result in assists a lot more often once the series starts to settle in.
Yeah, seems likely. I'm with pretty much everything for Tyrese. I do think he's going to come to play. It was the first playoff game. I know he hasn't quite looked like the same dude since he got hurt, but he's been definitely coming back on over the last couple of weeks, and I wouldn't just count him out by any means at this point. So I'm with that for sure. I'm going to take another dude, I believe from the same draft class. I can't remember now, with Ant being number 1 and Hallie being in there. Might have been the year after, but I'm taking Ant Edwards because I think Ant delivered on what we all thought was going to be a very impressive performance moving forward. Like in the playoffs from this dude, like, is there anybody that resembles Michael Jordan more? Can I just come out and say it? Nobody does. Ant Edwards is a complete man unto himself. I'll say that. I agree with him with what he said a couple weeks ago, where he was like, yo, I'm gonna be the best player in the league in 2 years. And I was like, yeah, you are. I agree with you. And so I'm going to take him to keep going with his legacy. I'm going to take the points and assists over 30.5. I'm okay with the rebounds. It's at 6. So it's like you get this 36.5 PRA. Don't hate it by any means, but there's other dudes who are out there to strictly board. And I think Ant, as aggressive as he's going to continue to be, we'll just stick with the points and assists. And here's two interesting numbers: 41% usage rate for the like 3rd or 4th year player in the NBA in his first ever playoff game, 3rd year player, right? So yeah, this is a dude who's prepared.
Definitely not his first playoff game though. You got to correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. He did come out there last year. That's right. The first year where it's so clearly his team, right? How about that? Because Cat is like, okay, my bad. It's your squad, bro. And so now moving forward for him, I think that will be the case. Like, there's nobody that he needs to defer to or ask if it's okay for him to keep shooting. The 41% usage rate I just told you about should really indicate that. Also a 30% assist rate, by the way. So he is the dude with the ball in his hands. He had 56 passes made and 9 potential assists. So I still think, for him to get like 5 to 6 assists is a very good number here. And I also By the way, the reasoning for that is that of the assists that he had in this last game, the majority of them also came right around the rim. There was only one kick out for 3 that he had on those potential assists that turned into an assist. Everything else is right around the rim. So he is a dude that's going to keep giving, like, and by the way, there's really no other 3-point shooting on this team very often on the floor, which is a big reason for why everything he's looking for the dimes is down low. So I use that to say, like, I don't think he needs, I think we can bank on like a pretty high assist rate for all of his potential assists, right? Like 5 on 8 or 6 on 9 potentials and assists is very reasonable for him. The other thing is 89 touches. That's the really amazing part to me, is that nobody came close. Like Paolo and he were far away the two dudes just having the ball in their hands the whole time for their teams, as we saw in game 1 for that Magic series as well. Who Paolo, I say that because Paolo also had about 90 touches, and the next closest person was Franz at about 65 or 70, and that's the exact case here for Ant in this one, was that nobody else had anywhere near 89 touches. Conley had 69 touches, nice, but that was about that nobody else even touched 60 at that point, right? So that's the dude with the ball in his hands, and it's just like, go and do what you need to do. That's going to be the case again if this is a little bit closer, right? Like I do anticipate this being a little bit closer than a blowout, which, by the way, the blowout is going to happen when you have one team that can't hit anything. The other team is very hot from 3 and a much better defensive team. That's going to happen with the way the Bulls blew them out. So I'm not too worried about that. Like, they don't get to take those extra points with them and use them for game 2. So I still think the Suns are in a good spot to be able to come back. And if that's the case, now you're talking about the only dude who shoots in the fourth quarter for this Minnesota Timberwolves team being Ant Edwards, right? Could have not necessarily a candidate for clutch player of the year, but he was somebody who had a ton of fourth quarter points, a ton of clutch points as well, and is someone that I think will have the ball in his hands a ton no matter what in the fourth quarter. And as he has, like, basically every quarter was the fourth quarter for Ant in this one. So, like, he would take a really bad shooting night. He even had 3 fouls in the first half and didn't get that many minutes, 10 points in the first half, and still ended with the 36 that he had. So I'm going to go right back to him. I don't think there's anybody on there. Like, they didn't play, maybe Josh Okogie didn't play him enough. That's for sure, to be able to stop Ant, but I don't have a good answer for Ant Edwards on the Suns to limit him in any way that makes me go, yeah, maybe we should be worried about him getting his points and assists. You're right.
Somehow they limited him in the regular season, and I guess Grayson Allen deserves a lot of credit, because like what he goes out this game and just like leaves his body. But I mean, you brought up Mike Conley, and I think that's the key here, is that Conley can't really defend these guys on the Suns. Like, he played 27 minutes, 5 fouls, 2 for 12 from the floor. And so then it's just like Ant is both the point guard and the shooting guard, and Cat's not fully healthy, and Cat Cat also played limited minutes because he can't guard KD. So yeah, that was what you were circling around in terms of like, it's really his team, like the usage rate, 41%. His last 4 when Conley just didn't play straight up, 35% usage, 31 points, 7 assists, and 48% from 3. So I think he stays hot. He just, you get more comfortable when the ball's in your hands that much, and he was just pulling these insane shots that were going down there in game 1. So yeah, got to ride the hot hand here. Yep. Both of my props here are about a little fate of Pat Beverly, I guess, is that Halliburton's going to get his, and Pat Bev, who's not really out there to play offense, is going to have a little regression here in terms of the points and assists, 11.5 points and assists under, please. I mean, he didn't necessarily, he only had 5 points in game 1 in the 37 minutes. Even on a per 36 minute basis with the Bucks, he's averaged 4.5 assists. He had 8 assists in game 1 on just 10 potential assists. So that's basically saying only 2 times did they not knock down the shot that was randomly kicked out by Bev here. He only has an 8.5% assist to pass ratio with the Bucks. So these are not high quality or high value passes being kicked out. 13% usage with the Bucks in general, but only 7.5% in this playoff game, as Dame and Bobby Portis taking up all the shots that they can get their hands on here. I mean, where's he even going to score from? Like, the Pacers limit 3-point attempts more than anybody since the All-Star break. They have these young guards flying around, chasing him off the line. I mean, Pat Bev is a guy who might hit a couple threes to get some points, but I don't really think that anything consistent is going to happen when he goes to the basket. And I just expect some regression with the assists here. Pacers also didn't give it up many assists at all on the season because they foul people, right? I mean, that being one of the reasons. But yeah, I mean, just fade his offense. He's not out there to play offense.
I had some people online being like, "Yo, what do you think about Pat Bev props?" And before game one, and I was like, "What? Who is betting on Pat Bev props overs?" Yeah, I think it was a wonderful opportunity. It brought to my attention that Pat Bev had a really good game because I was looking for him to be like, "Is this dude right? Should I have bet on overs for Pat Bev?" And he had a good game one, but it just made me hyper aware of like, well, okay, so are you going to raise his props for me for game two so we can go under? And I would agree with you entirely that the assists for Pat Bev are it's just like once Dame gets the ball out of his hands, or I should say the Pacers get the ball out of Dame's hands and it's in Pat Bev's, it's like, you trust him to be the dude now making plays? I don't. But it's highly correlated to what I'm talking about here. I mean, I'm taking an under on Dame's assists. And I mean, that's not necessarily what's correlated. I'm just saying like I think that ball is going to have to get taken out of Dame's hands because the Pacers are going to do what they did in the second half of that game where they waited till they were down by 30 to actually play defense on Damian Lillard the correct way. And that's going to be to blitz him and force it out of his hands and make Pat Bev make decisions. And I don't think he's going to be successful at that. As bad as this Pacers defense is, I still don't think he's going to be very successful at that. But I'm going under on the assist for Dame because I really, really wish I would have done that in game one, too, considering that I was like, I'm going to wait to see how this Pacers team plays him. And then once they started not blitzing him and just letting him get shots up, it was like, all right, probably take an over on the points and an under on the assists. And I think you could still do that because I can't guarantee you, like I can't, like you were saying earlier, I can't climb into Rick Carlisle's head and say, they're going to make sure that Dame gets the ball out of his hands as soon as he crosses half court. That's what they did that worked the best in the first game, though. So I'm going to at least bank on that being something he can turn to. So with that, like once they blitz him, right, the assist, you would think that just because they're going to take the ball out of his hands, they're going to get fewer. That makes an opportunity for him to get more assists. But I don't think that's the case because he's basically going to have to get the ball out of his hands very quickly, like not even anywhere near the 3-point line, that level of quickly, because there's no other way to beat this team if Dame's going to do that or come close to the performance he had in the first half. So he had 11 potential assists in game one and only managed to get 3 of those. And that's kind of how I see this going is like once he gets rid of the ball, I think maybe hockey assists are more likely for Dame is an easy way to say what I'm trying to say, which is he's going to have to get rid of it in a situation where now the defense is imbalanced, but there's still somebody guarding the guy that he just passed to. There's nobody guarding the other guy that the secondary guy can now pass to for those hockey style assists. And that's what we saw Dame accrue a bit more of in the second half of last game. When he accrued those potential assists, it was like, yeah, well, those turned into secondary assists essentially, right? For the Pacers, we've talked about this a lot all season. They don't give up assists in general. And it's because they try not to double team too much until Dame Lillard scores 35.5. And then they have to in the second half of that game last game. 5 games versus Indy this year, 9.6 potential assists and 5 total a game for him against this squad. Under in 4-5. And Giannis was in for the game that he went over, which was their first meeting against this team. And I actually I know that he gets about 1 more assist per game without Giannis on the floor this season in the 9 games that he played in the regular season without him. But that one of those games was against the Phoenix Suns, who are just awful against point guards. And he had 16 assists on 20 potentials in that one. So that's skewing these numbers a bit in those 9 games that he played without Giannis. For sure, there was another game where he also had about 13 assists without Giannis. And after that, we're talking about like 5-5, 5-5, 4-3, 6-6, right? Like not very many assists for him at all in those situations because it's like you know that this is the dude. So you cover him tightly and you cover the only people that are right close around him that he can make an easy pass to tightly. And that limits assists in general. Without Giannis against other teams too, 6 of the 9 games that he played without Giannis this year, he went under 7 assists in those and had 6 in one of them. So 7 exactly in one of them. So butted up right against it. But like I was saying, like the way that the double team is going to be coming at him in this game is not necessarily like, okay, force it out of his hands, which means there's an open shooter in the corner. It's just force it out of his hands and then scramble to try to get back, but probably give up an open 3 to guys like Pat Bev, Pat Connaughton, maybe some Malik Beasley, who wasn't really made for that last game either. But I don't trust any of that. And I don't think that's going to lead to Dame assists at all. So I'm going to take under 7 for him.
Yeah, I mean, your main point here is he's not Luka Doncic. He cannot jump and spray the ball to the corner over a double team. And he's not big like Yoke. And yeah, I mean, if you double Dame, it's somebody else who's got to make the decision. That makes sense. I mean, also look at the Bucks as a team. Like we're both fading assists here with Giannis out. They average 4 assists fewer, 23.3 assists in these 9 games without Giannis, which would be worst in the NBA aside from only the Portland Trailblazers this year. So, I mean, yeah, they're not scoring or they're not bending the defense because they don't have Giannis there. And the Pacers should do a much better job of corralling Dame and company here.
Yep, 100%. So, yeah, they should win this game if everything goes according to plan for them, but not necessarily something that I have any money on yet. But that is all the time we have for you in this player props video. Also have best bets up in a separate episode, so make sure that you are checking that out. Subscribe to the page and continue to follow along with us the rest of these playoffs. And until we see you next, happy betting.